Welcome to another episode of Roasting Marshmallows. My name is Rolf Zuurt and I'm your host, joined today by Pancho Gastiowski and Henrique Santana de Miranda, and our fourth guest, who I will introduce right now. So imagine being on a submarine with your colleagues, heading out to open waters, potentially being together in a cramped space for several months. If morale and performance amongst you and your fellow colleagues is low, you would probably be reluctant to head out there. And our guest today had to deal exactly with this problem. He was assigned command of the nuclear submarine, the USS Santa Fe, the ship that everyone joked about during their Prospective Commanding Officer training. He managed, though, to transform the ship into the best performing vessel in the fleet, and he shared the story in his book, Turn the Ship Around. So today we are roasting marshmallows with David Marquet, a retired United States Navy captain and the best-selling author of Turn the Ship Around and Leadership is a Language. Welcome, David.
Thank you, Rolf, and thanks for having me on your show. You know when you're roasting marshmallows where if you got it right, you could get like one crust off and you toast it again, you get like the holy grail is if you could do that 3 times for me. And yeah, only on just everything had to come together right for that to happen.
Yeah.
And that was sort of like what happened on Santa Fe.
All right. I was going to ask, do you actually roast marshmallows in the woods, for real?
I haven't done that recently. It's sad. Open fires and whatnot. But I love doing it when we can. Plus, I live in Florida, so there's really not much opportunity.
Right. So, I was wondering, first off, how did you realize that the approach that you had on the Santa Fe could actually be, applied to the corporate world as well, since you're, writing books and coaching all these companies? When did you come to that realization?
Well, I had, first of all, I replicated it in my next job where I was the Commodore of 6 submarines. Very same approach, very similar results. Mm-hmm. And I didn't really quote know, but I had a belief because everywhere I would go, whatever kind of organization it was, everything came down to the human interactions. And of course, every company says, "Oh, we're so unique. Oh, we bottle water, or we operate nuclear power plant, or we build airplanes, or we're making this really important software, which blah blah, whatever it happens to be." But when you get down to it, there's more that's the same. They have the same people have problems having holding other people accountable for bad behavior, having difficult conversations, inviting feedback. Being challenged, working to improve, and it's all the same set of interactions and patterns. That's what I see at the very basic level.
Yeah. So if we read both your books, it seems like that you uncovered a lot of these patterns that you just mentioned also that are now in big part covered in the agile or adaptive, but you uncovered them independently. Yeah. But you were literally in a do or die situation. So my question would be do we really need to find ourselves in that kind of situations, or even to bring companies in that kind of situations for some profound transformations to occur within those organizations?
Yeah, well, so my situation was I was trained for one submarine and then I was sent to a different one at the very last minute. But all my quote leadership training lived within a structure of leaders make decisions and tell people what to do. Yep. And we've separated the people doing the work from the people deciding about the work. But it fell apart when I didn't know the details of the submarine. Now I'd still try to do it. I don't think you have to have that situation. I don't want you to have that situation. I had that situation, which forced me to say, the solution is not me making better decisions. The solution is me not being the person who makes decisions. I fundamentally had to shift it. And then when I saw that, even when I did learn the submarine and I had the ability to go back to the old way, I really tried not to, because I saw how powerful it was, this explosion of creativity, thinking, innovation, healthy, happier people. And so I saw the benefits. So I think the problem with companies is they go to the same office building or they sit on the same Zoom calls with the same people day in, day out, and the world around them changes, but it doesn't look like it's changed because their experience of life is very similar and repetitive. For me, there was an obvious change. Okay, instead of going to this submarine, I went to this submarine. It looks different, smells different, drives different people. So there was this obvious change. But even at that level where it was cognitive, it still wasn't deeply emotional.
Yeah.
And this way of doing the leadership, do you think you would have done the same type on any other submarine?
No.
Is it just a natural thing for you?
It was not. It was anything but natural. It was. People say, "Oh, you had such courage." I say, "No, you don't get it. It was pure fear and panic. We're just grasping for things to do." Now, of course, this was based on 20 years operating submarines and interacting with teams and having a good sense of what would work and what wouldn't work.
Yeah, of course.
But
yeah.
Einstein famously said if he had a day to save the world, he'd spend 23 hours on the problem and 1 hour on the solution. The problem is the way you think about the problem drives the solution. If the problem is I need to make better decisions, I'm a decision maker, I need to make better decisions, then the solution is you got to make better decisions. If the problem is you're the wrong person to be making decisions, then the solution is how do I create a team that's a decision-making. I thought about like it's a decision-making factory. And on the submarine, we talked about I wanted people to think, but I also wanted people to perform. So, for example, I wanted people to make a decision, is it the right time to start the reactor? But once we made that decision, I wanted them to follow the procedure of starting the reactor in a very precise and prescribed way. So this wasn't like do whatever you want whenever you can. It was anything but that. But it was a very structured, disciplined approach of inviting thinking at one moment and then closing the door and saying, now you're doing. And then if there's something, and to me, that's really kind of the essence of Agile, especially when I look at the Scrum and the sprints. It's like, okay, let's decide what we're going to do, and then it's going to do it, and then we're going to protect the team from whipsaw. We call them the good idea fairy. Oh, I just went to a conference. I heard this idea. We need to add this feature to this software. Yeah, but we're halfway through the sprint. So we're going to throw that brilliant idea into the backlog, and we'll talk about it in a week. And then the week later, it's like, yeah, I guess, yeah, whatever. You know, it's
Exactly.
but we got to. So I think that's such an important thing that we miss. It's like we need to protect the team from that. Let them just do it, and then we'll emerge at the end and reflect back.
I do wonder, like, because, for example, you mentioned you came to the Santa Fe, right? And then you did all those, I think you call intent-based leadership, and you try to make everybody, like, say the right things. But then you also say, like, you had your boss, right? And your boss probably, and you had, like, 20 years of leadership training and everything. So didn't you get, like, pushback from your whole organization? Like, what are you actually doing here?
Yeah. No. My
That is nice.
First of all, is on a submarine. I mean, imagine you could take your whole software company, lock the doors of the building, everybody just live and say, we're just going to live here for the next 2 weeks.
And
Or
you have
6
nuclear
months.
weapons on it, right?
Yeah.
What are we going to do about it?
Right. And we can go anywhere in the world, and no one knows we're there. So we're going to live here. We're going to eat here. We're going to sleep here. And all we're going to do is we're going to work on the product for 2 weeks. And it's essential. I mean, you're sending reports outside, especially if there's a problem and your boss knows about it. But you start sending reports like, yeah, we've added this feature. Yeah, we've tested this. Yeah, we met the next milestone. Yeah, everybody's happy. Everyone, oh, by the way, people are knocking on the door. They want to come. No one's leaving anymore. All those people are talking about this place is not helpful, aren't saying that. when we go public, we're not going to have a mass exodus of people take their stock money and leave. And so, though the external parameters and indicators are all showing things going better, so my boss left me alone, and inside he's projecting, oh, I must have really learned how to give orders really quickly, the right order. Now we had him ride the submarine. We invited him frequently, and he could come and rode, and he did. But no one cares how great your culture is, and we have such an empowering, healthy, inclusive culture. If business sucks, if you're not making the products that people want to buy, and if you're losing money. So number one is you need to be performing well, and I think, but the key to strong performance is getting everybody on the team engaged and thinking.
Yeah. So you, we have a bunch of questions, but one of the famously terms that you coined also in the turn the ship around was the intention-based leadership, and in parallel we are stumbling across by other thinkers like Daniel Masek, invitation-based leadership. Are you familiar with what invitation-based leadership concepts are? So essentially the idea is that you basically invite your teams or your organization to participate in the decision-making process and the discussions. And I was wondering if the intention-based leadership and the invitation-based leadership are kind of analogous to each other and complementary. So in this sense, when you've essentially discovered on the Santa Fe that, I cannot make decisions, I'm assuming you invited your immediate team surrounding you to figure out a way how are we going to work this out. And in that sense,
yes.
What role did your immediate team played in figuring out how you guys were going to operate the Santa Fe?
So I did use the word invite, and the way I describe it is I invite the team to higher levels of thinking and higher levels of ownership and higher levels of involvement, but it requires higher levels of vulnerability. That's the trade-off. So, for example, someone says, hey, I got a problem, what should I do? I invite them to description. We have a very structured language-based approach called the ladder of leadership. And so description is first. Well, tell me more. What do you see? What did the client say, or what happened with the test, or how complicated is the code, or what just tell me what are the things that are giving indication that there's a problem here, a decision to be made, whatever. We're at a 4. Now, the reason you start with description is because it feels very safe. Well, yeah, sure, I can tell you when I showed up, they said this, or we put it on the website and this is what happened, blah, blah, blah. And then you say, okay, assessment. Okay, what do you think is happening? What is causing this? What came before this? And then and then the next step is action. Well, what would you like permission to do, which is a permission-based organization, which is the way many organizations run, or what? Just tell me what you intend to do. If I weren't here, make an announcement. Here we intend to launch the product next week. We intend to delay launch, and we'll issue a press report, and we're going to do another weeks of testing. Well, okay, great. The brilliance with intent is you get the communication that people like. So you get all the communication that happens with a permission-based organization, but you get the initiative and ownership with the just do it, which we don't like. With just do it, you lose communication. With permission, you lose ownership. But with intent, you get both. But here's the thing. I don't know anything about invitation-based leadership. I never heard of it, but it makes sense to me because every step of the way, it's an invitation to the purpose. You can't to the person. You can't order. One of our jokes is you can't order people into an empowerment program. That makes absolutely no sense. So we invite people, and over again, we say we invite people, we invite people, we invite people. The fundamental leadership structures that most companies have are coercive.
Yes,
they're not invitational. Now, you don't get to choose oh, I don't feel like doing that today, so I'm not going to do it. Okay. That was a choice you made when you signed up. So there's a commitment and an obligation. Sometimes I think people forget this. It's a two-sided thing. And so you join a team. So I have a marketing person, I have a designer, I have 2 coders, and I have a person interfacing with the client. Okay, the designer can't say, yeah, I just don't feel like, plan. No, you made a commitment to the team. The team's relying on you. There's no other. We don't have another designer. Your freedom occurred when you signed up to join the company, and you could have not joined, or when you signed up to join this team, and you could have not joined. But once you sign up to the team, you incur a commitment and an obligation, which I think we don't spend enough time being honest talking about. And then we get this thing where I can't rely on you. Like,
correct.
Oh, well, whatever, I couldn't show up. So imagine we're supposed to pick up a SEAL team, or we're supposed to be in a certain place to defend the aircraft carrier. We say, yeah, we just didn't feel like doing it. We just couldn't get there. It was too hard. We had too much maintenance, blah, blah, blah. So there's no freedom of movement there. Making the commitment to start at the beginning, and then how you execute those decisions is where your freedom of maneuver is.
Yeah. So if I go back a little bit on the intent, right? Like you have another sentence you say like you should push out authority to the information or the information to the authority, and I can definitely see like how the intent based, let's say, can help, right? That you're basically pushing the intent and explain exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
The question I have is, where does it start? Like, does it start from the leadership, or does it start from the team below? Like, oh, I read this book and now I'm going to try this intent leadership, and automatically my boss is going to start changing his way. Why do you think this has to start?
Well, if you're going to change an organization, it's a lot easier to start from the top. You don't need to send people to training. I mean, if you have a leadership program where you're like, oh, we need to send everyone through training. Now we do training. Then you're probably not on the right track, because if the leaders just behaved correctly, it would just become the natural way that the organization interacts. So, for example, if you come to me, Enrique, and you say, I think we should launch the product 2 weeks early, and I'm scared because we haven't done all the testing and whatever. And so my reaction is something like, well, are you sure? And have you thought about safety? And so these are binary questions which come from, I think I'm right and I think you're wrong.
Yeah.
So
couldn't it be also genuine fears and genuine concerns?
Yeah, they can be, but once I express it in that way, then I'm sending a signal to the team. I don't believe you guys. I think you guys are wrong, and then that will reflect itself in the teams. Some teams will say, "Oh yeah, you're right. Never mind. We'll just launch." Or some teams will.
Yeah.
Some people will get angry. Some people become defensive. Some people shut down. Versus if I say something like, "Oh, wow, that's a great opportunity. Tell me more about it." Even if I have the skepticism and I have those fears, the point is to be curious before being compelling. So when we might need to say no at the end.
Yeah.
Teams do not make decisions. Individuals do. I do not believe in a team decision-making model. I've never seen one that's actually real. Because they say, well, yeah, the team made decisions. Well, tell me exactly how this happened. Well, they went in a room, they talked, they came out and had a decision. Like, no. How exactly did? Well, Rolf said we should launch on time, and we talked about it, and we decided to launch on time. Well, it's not like Rolf made the decision.
Yep.
So one of the things that made this work was in the Navy, we had very clear ownership. I knew every piece of equipment, who owned it. It was very clear. And so if it's not working in your company, you might look at, is it clear what decision authorities I have? Because if you don't know what they have, you can't redefine them at the next lower level. But push authority to information, not the traditional channel information up to someone with authority for a decision that comes back down. That's the traditional industrial age way.
Yeah. And I was wondering about making change in the organization, because when you started making the changes on the submarine, one of the, well, maybe not the first step, but one of the earlier steps was to kind of fake it till you make it, right? Like you said, like, hey, let's do this certain the three name sentence. I think, like, welcome aboard. My name is this guy, and and that's, like I said, I kind of interpret it as maybe faking it until the actual mindset shifted. Do you think people are open to that kind of way of doing things?
Yeah, I don't like the phrase "fake it till you make it." That means, to me, that kind of conjures images of, I'll just, sort of puff out my chest and pretend to be important or an influencer or whatever when I'm not, and then somehow the external world will then react to me. What I think the way it works is we do, the phrase we use is we act our way to new thinking. So if you want the team, here's an exercise we do with our executive teams. We say, I want a culture of more blank, and people fill in. And it's always the same. I want more collaboration. I want more safety, involvement, whatever. Mm-hmm. And then then part two is, what would it sound like if we had blank? So let's say people are like, I want a culture where people can speak up in a meeting, even if they think differently than what it seems like the group thinks, especially if they think differently from how the group seems to be talking. So I say, okay, great. What would that sound like? Let's write a TV script. So if we're going to make a little movie showing this, how would that sound? And the reason that's important is because now you have precise words, and there may be several ways that it comes out, but you pick one. So, for example, first of all, we think you should run the meeting in a way where people, we call it vote first, then discuss. So rather than saying, so we're going to get ready to launch the product next week, how does everyone think about it? And then someone says, well, yeah, we've done all testing, we're good to go. So in other words, we talk about it and then say, so any last dissenters? And then there are very few typically, because everybody knows that everybody wants to launch the product, quote, everybody. So what you say instead is, how confident are we, or how enthusiastic are we about launching the product next week? Now people vote. We don't talk about it. They know enough. Trust me. Mm-hmm. And then we say, oh, Panche, I see you got a really low number. Tell us more about that. And then a whole bunch of people say, sure. And then one person or a small group says, not so fast. Then again, and this is the job of the leader, is to structure the conversation. So Rolf, you and Enrique are like, yeah, we're good. I was like, hold on. Let's hear from these guys, the minority who thinks differently. I don't need to hear the majority voice. It's already going to be loud enough in the room. And this is what leaders, so it's not a democracy. The leader controls the flow of the conversation, which spotlights the dissenting opinions.
I do wonder now then, there is always this cliche message between there is management, there is leadership, there is leader, right? Like, what is your take on it? And also how, in this example you gave, like, you don't have to hear everyone, but then, like, how do you defeat that problem if you have buddies that you like the most, and then you're like, oh, I want to listen to this guy, and that person is, yeah.
Well, you don't do that. You walk into the meeting saying, I'm going to find every opportunity. First of all, you already have an idea.
Yeah.
And so you're going to walk into the meeting saying, I'm going to find every opportunity to allow the people who think differently than I do, or differently than I think the group is going to do, to share their opinion. We're going to make it easier for them to share their opinion. And that's what you work to do. And you just have to stay on that task. And it's hard.
Yes, I guess that's the point. I guess
it's so easy for me to say it, but we will talk about this in a workshop, and then I'll say I'll give the guys some silly assignment. Okay, now at your tables, come up with what is the population of Uzbekistan?
Yeah.
You have 60 seconds. And even though we just talked about it, what will happen at the table is someone will say 20 million. Oh no, I think it's a little higher. No, no, no. Like you guys exactly did what we just told you not to do. Oh yeah, but so-and-so, Rolf said he disagreed. He said, no, he thinks it's 25, but Rolf really thought it was 40 million, but he kind of said, it's a little far out, so I'm going to make it more closer to what the group thinks. And so we miss everything out here, and that's where all the creativity is. Not everything that's out there is creative, but all innovations are going to be something different than what the group already thinks.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. You mentioned also earlier in this talk about your first initial experiences on the Santa Fe. You explained it very emotional a bit, and also you document that also in the books quite extensively, and also some of your talks. The moments when you actually realized that you didn't know everything, and the most painful was actually the rest of the crew figuring out and uncovering that you were not the expert of everything as maybe first initially you expected to be, and also maybe they expected to be. It feels to me it's a bit of like an ego that needs to get sacrificed for a true transformation to occur.
Yeah. So first of all, look, it was obvious I didn't know everything. I knew that. Of course, I knew that. It was a different submarine. I'd never seen it before. I knew it. The crew knew it. They knew I was trained. They knew I was supposed to go to a different ship. They knew their captain quit. They knew I was landed on their ship at the very last minute. We all knew it. But it's just like saying, you can know something. Well, you should walk 10,000 steps a day, or you shouldn't eat too much gelato every week, or you should, whatever it is. We all know stuff. Knowing is not the problem. It's the behavior. I know I should quit smoking, but I keep smoking. So it's not the knowing. And for me, there were a couple things. Number one is I had this deep-seated fear of dying, because I could see that that's what the trajectory was. In my head, I was forecasting, playing the movie forward, and the movie ended in dying, because I would give a bad order, they would do it. But the second thing was, I had this weird, I called it care, don't care. I had this weird mindset where I care deeply and passionately about the team and our mission, and I didn't care about me. I didn't care about the bureaucracy, I didn't care about how the bureaucracy treated me. I had my dream job. I was the submarine commander. That's what I wanted to be. I didn't care about the next promotion. So I didn't really give a shit about anything. And this freed me to just do whatever I wanted.
If on the other side you have death, and on the other side you have bureaucracy, I mean, it's obvious, you're not going to care about bureaucracy, right?
You can say that, but we know hundreds of times
I know
where bureaucracy trumps death. We know airplane accidents where co-pilots won't speak up until the pilot, they're screwed up. I mean, you guys know the story in the Netherlands from the Canary Island 747 crash, where the pilot says we go in, and the co-pilot says really, and then hundreds of people die. So we know over and over and over again that bureaucracy frequently trumps rationality and safety.
Yeah. Amazing. I'm sad to say, but I think we're running out of time here.
Unless David has more time.
Listen, thanks you guys, and listen for all the listeners out there. I think it's very, very hard because you need to apply structure in how the team operates, and this is why I love Agile, because there's a structure which recognizes that there's two different modes of operating: thinking and doing, and rather than having one group of people think and the different group do, which is the industrial age solution, we need to get the same people who are doing to do the thinking, i.e. decision making. Yep. And it's a great structure, and I tip my hat to it in my book. You don't want to get so. You don't want to be like the Agile police and say, no, it's called this word or that word, which I see a lot of people. I think that's a mistake there. So at the most basic level, it's how are we managing the rhythm between doing and thinking on the team? And for a leader, I don't think anyone's born a natural leader. I think we're all sort of born natural achievers or bosses, maybe. But leadership really requires flipping and going against your instincts in a lot of ways. It requires giving control rather than taking control, and it requires elevating people on a social level around you rather than suppressing them and making yourself look higher. And so there's a lot of things in my mind which really make it hard to be a leader, and we act against them. So my number one thing is just like, why did you say it that way? Why did you run the meeting that way? And so listeners, if you just think about that one thing, I think you'll move forward in a lot of different ways. Your life will be better. Your team's life will be better. Your company will be doing better.
All right.
Wow. Thanks, man.
And, if you guys need more wisdom from David, like we said, he has 2 books out there. We'll put the links in the description below. And he also has a YouTube channel where he has short videos with all these kinds of little nuggets of wisdom. We'll also include a link to that one. Be sure to check it out. There's a lot to learn. David, thank you very much for your time. It's been an absolute joy.
Cheers. And, thanks, guys.
Yeah. Yes. Panche, thank you guys as well. And as always, you can reach us on Twitter at twitter.com/4scouts. David, do you have a Twitter handle for the people?
David Marquet.
Perfect. Right. And we'll include that one as well.
Thank you.
That's it for this week, guys. Thank you very much, and see you later. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Scoutcast, Roasting Marshmallows, with your host, Rolf Surd. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit 4scouts.nl and on Twitter @4scouts. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a review and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time on Scoutcast, Roasting Marshmallows.